Hello, good evening. It's the 26th of February 2008, already Tuesday evening, and it's time for maybe one or two little snippets. I wanted to tell you first, and I've mentioned it before in the past, about night nurse paralysis. It's an attack that night nurses of long-standing, I believe, would suffer from. And it used to attack me quite heavily in the early days, in the early years of being on nights. And also, after shifts, it would be a case of me lying on the bed, and suddenly I would become paralysed, awake, seemingly awake, somewhere between wakefulness and sleepfulness. Very, very strange indeed. And it was on one of those occasions, following a long shift, when I was on days, that I had an actual out-of-body experience. Following that experience, what I did was I woke up and I basically found myself lying, facing the ceiling of in the nurse's home, in my room in the nurse's home. Oh, I sort of realised that my nose was almost touching the ceiling. And when I came to my senses, that was enough to jerk me back into my body. Anyway, that's another story, really. But it was during one of these night nurse paralysis episodes when I was in Taliban. Now, I was married then, and so it must have been something like, I don't know, certainly mid-80s. I was sat upstairs. Well, let me describe Taliban first of all. Downstairs, 4-bedder, little ward at the end of the corridor, office at the other end, and upstairs, 3 dormitories. Stairs leading up both sides. One nurse would stay downstairs, and the other nurse would stay upstairs during the night, so that they'd be on hand if a patient got up. And I used to sit with my back to the door of one of the stairs. Comfortable chair, book, drink, newspaper or whatever, something to read, something to keep you awake, chess machine, and of course a nice pillow, because you needed to be comfortable. That had a downside because you could sort of nod off, so to speak, but I wasn't really one for nodding off because I generally slept well in the daytime. Anyway, I happened to one night, it must have been 3:30, 4:45 maybe, when everything was totally and utterly silent. Nothing stirred, no snoring, there was nothing, there was no sound, totally utter silence, and I realised that I was suffering an attack of night nurse paralysis. I was, to all intents and purposes, glued in that chair with my eyes wide open. I was unable to move. I was in a vulnerable position, but thankfully, or maybe not, it wasn't the appearance of a patient that worried me. No. It was the apparition that was coming from one end of the corridor down towards me, seemingly floating along the corridor, feet off the ground. It was a female form, long grey hair, pinched features, and wearing a long white nightie or shroud, I don't know. I prefer to think it was a nightie rather than a shroud. And it was coming towards me. It wasn't looking at me, it seemed to be looking through me. And it came closer and closer. And when it reached about 7 feet away, that seemed to be enough to jerk me into some sort of life, into some sort of action. And I grabbed the pillow behind me and I threw it. I threw it at the apparition, at the spirit, at the poor wretch. And it disappeared. It seemed to just evaporate away. Well, I picked the pillow up and I settled myself down in the chair, picked up the newspaper and sort of shook myself awake. Obviously a dream. But as time has gone on, I've thought, well, was it a dream? Was it my fevered imagination? Was it a symptom of night nurse paralysis? What I advise you to do is just Google night nurse paralysis and you'll see exactly the symptoms of night nurse paralysis. I don't think seeing ghosts is one of them. But of course in those days there was no Google, and I had to ask some of the night nurses about this experience that I was getting now and again, where I would just be stuck in the chair, and they did indeed say quite openly that it was something quite common within the nursing profession, and indeed any night duty profession. What's that? Oh, I thought it was a ghost, but it's only my own reflection. Okay, one other story, and it's really to do with when I was a cadet, and being the youngest, being not from Denby, I was given all the unenviable jobs, let's put it like that. And one of them, I mentioned my old friend the Blob in the previous tale, and when I was in the sports department, we did have to shift them all over the place. I mean, if they needed a pair of hands boards, say they were busy, they would call on cadets, and particularly those in the sports department, to come and do some lumping, some shifting of patients, usually in wheelchairs. So I was quite often called upon to push this lady around. Now, as I've mentioned before, I was 16, just 17 probably, and it wasn't the prettiest of sights, the sounds, the smells, and I mean, it was my first introduction to female underwear, and it took me a number of years to get over that. One particular day, again, I was down in female 5, they were all lined up ready to go, and of course I had the short straw. I drew that, and this lady had to be pushed in her wheelchair, quite a heavy lady. I stood stretching as I was pushing up the corridor, trying to get her to the top. Anyway, turn left again. She was going to the physiotherapy department, whilst the others were going to the sports department. And I was actually given the key, which was quite rare for someone of my junior status, to take her into the physio and await the physiotherapist. And that's what I did. I unlocked the door, pushed her through, locked the door behind me, and sat myself down next to her. She was, of course, in the wheelchair, awaiting the physiotherapist. And blow me, if the physio didn't walk in without having to unlock the door. In he came. I thought I must have fouled up. I thought I had not locked the door properly behind me. There were 2 other occasions when I had to take this lady to the physiotherapy department, and on both other occasions, that door refused to stay locked. Again, was it me fouling up, or was it something within the door? Was the door sending a message? I don't know. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and leave me a comment if you've enjoyed it, or if you haven't enjoyed it, just leave me a comment. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.